Welcome back to Personal Branding and Motorsports. Today's topic, Mr. Jeff White and I chat about how we got our jobs as professional drivers. Here we go! Jeff White and I are going to be chatting again. You guys might remember Jeff from that video right there. Straight up for Jeff. There you go. Point to the roof, Jeff. Nice job. Whoop, whoop. Anyway, we've already chatted a handful of times in the past. Jeff and I worked together as professional drivers all over the country for brands such as Kia and Mercedes.
Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, yes. Mercedes-Benz.
Yes,
Anyway, the topic of today is, how did we get this job?
How do you get this job?
Yeah. With that said, Jeff, you want to take it away?
All right. So one of the things I find interesting is that each driver has their own specific story. And it's funny because we get asked the question probably the most out of any question that is non-vehicle specific is, how'd you get this job? Or how do I get this job? And it's like,
yeah,
I can tell you how I got this job, but that's not going to be how you get this job. Because, and I didn't, it was actually reversed on me because I would wonder too, like, how do you get this job? And then I didn't realize that everybody is going to have their own path. And the number one thing that's important is that you want to be a professional driver. And, well, what does that mean? Because an Uber driver is a professional driver.
I get that a lot, where, like, if I'm on the road, I think we talked about this the other day, but when I'm on the road and I go into, like, a Love's or a truck stop or whatever,
right.
the Pilot, and it's like, professional drivers, we have showers available, and I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, OTR, over the road, guys.
So when I wasn't in this position, I used to think, like, okay, let's simply define what is a professional driver. I'm getting paid to drive. So, okay, so I should just... My lookout of it was I should just start there. I should start with everything I can do to get paid to drive. So what does that include? That includes Uber driving, valet parking. That was technically my first professional driving job when I was
foray
17 years old.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I became a professional driver. Valet parking, because technically that was your job. You've got, I put ads up on Craigslist, driver for hire ads, to drive people's Penske trucks to Las Vegas. Random stuff like that. But technically, you're getting paid to drive. That's a professional, right? The difference between a professional and amateur, one gets paid, one doesn't. So you could simplify it to that point. And if you're really looking to get into it and, like, you want to make it that simple and you don't have anything else to go off of, that's literally how simple you can make it. And essentially, that's kind of how I started was, what can I do to get paid to drive? I volunteered a lot to drive things, especially being in the Marine Corps. When they asked for somebody to get in my situation, a Humvee license, my hand went up. And literally I was the only one that raised my hand.
I don't get that. Why?
You would think, and I guess it's just like us. We don't understand why people aren't car people. Yeah. Right? It's the same thing in the Marine Corps. Like, there's guys who are like, I'm not going to stop driving that damn big-ass slow thing. And I'm like, oh, wait, you want somebody to drive something? Like, I want to drive it.
Yeah, I'm in.
Like, that was always what I was into. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was everything I did in life was to set myself up to drive anything. And I think that's key number one. Drive everything you can. It's a forklift. It's a backhoe, it's a bobcat, it's whatever it is, drive it. It's a shop van, shop truck, whatever it is. If you're a professional driver, you're subconsciously going to set yourself up to drive shit. You're not, it's without you even thinking about it. And then later on, when you start realizing, like, man, I really love this, I could do this for free, you're going to keep going, well, okay, I need to start figuring out how to get myself into the position where I can drive things. Of course, there is going to come a point at some time where you're going to have to get a little bit more serious about it and get actual training and so that you have credentials. But it's weird because in the driving world there isn't really a credential.
There are no credentials.
Maybe
really.
A CDL driver, right? He's got a credential that he can get. But that's for CDL driving. What if you don't want to be a CDL driver? You want to be, like in our position, you want to drive a G-Class over a metal structure.
Yeah, you want to do like promo events or activations.
There's
or
no
demos.
certification for that. There's
No, not at
nothing
all.
you can do other than off-roading, really, that when somebody says, hey, can you drive off-road? And you have something to say to that.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess, like, whether you do it recreationally, I guess, or you do it for somebody, you have to do it. The end goal is you've got to go do the thing.
You have to have the experience, which is,
right.
I think, why the resume is so important.
Yeah.
Because even though, like, a resume at this point in life, a lot of people say, oh, it's all about who you know. And that's true, but when I've gotten a lot of work off of people recommending me.
Sure.
But if I don't have a resume to send in, the company isn't going to hire me, right? They're not going to go off of just somebody's word.
Because there is going to be maybe a point in time where somebody recommends you, but they recommend you to somebody who maybe needs, like, you went through the gatekeeper who is the recommender, but that person needs to look at, like, oh, well, I mean, what has he done?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we know if he's a good fit?
Right.
Because, like, I mean, you take some of these jobs, for example, okay, just because you're a professional driver, well, what kind of professional driver? You know, when you start looking at the details, when you look at off-road has a different skill set than what we're doing here in Dallas, where that's high-speed stuff. That's, you know, knowing understeer. You know, maybe not necessarily off-road, you deal with understeer and oversteer. It's more you're dealing with weight control. Like, so I funnel everything down in driving to weight control and application of power. I think everything in driving can be funneled down to those two basic principles, whether you're doing off-road, on-road, anything. Well, then you start to get, when it splits off from that, understeer and oversteer doesn't necessarily have that much relation to off-road, right? Unless you start to go really fast in off-road. Then it starts to be a big deal. But in slow stuff, like the Iron Shekel, you don't have understeer and oversteer. You're not dealing with that. You're dealing with, you know, brake and throttle control, like how to get up over the structure, how to know where I point the vehicle is going to go, how do I, you know, how I know at certain points how the vehicle is going to tip and at what point I can hit that, you know, and all that stuff, and controlling it on the way down.
It's almost entirely about weight management.
Yeah, it's all weight control, right? You apply power going up, and you can't apply too much power going up, or you'll spin or whatever. But it's also, you know, so it's those two basic principles, but you're not dealing with understeer and oversteer. Here, we're dealing with understeer and oversteer, and also weight control. You know, it's like all those things. So it really, I think you do have to get to a point. If you just want to be a rally driver, yeah, you're gonna have different skill sets you're gonna have to focus on. Me personally, I just want to do everything. So I've got to focus on everything. Now, some people are more simple than that. They don't want to focus on everything.
Yeah.
And they should. You got to figure out. I guess it's like any career in life. You got to figure out what you want. A lawyer. A criminal lawyer is very different than a family lawyer, you know, and all the different wills and power of attorneys and stuff they have to deal with. Well, you got to decide at some point what you want to deal with, or do you want to deal with everything?
Yeah, most professions do that, right? Like if you look at doctors or what have you, there are general practitioners, but they usually refer to specialists, like people that are good at one thing. Driving is a lot like that too. I think you and I both have a very similar approach, which is we want to drive everything with the steering
spectrum.
wheel. Yeah, like anything I'm
four wheels, steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I'll drive it.
Like, 3 wheels.
I used to drive the Snowcats, you know. I mean, driving the Bobcats, like all that. I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Heavy equipment's even fun. I just like operating machinery.
Yeah.
But the challenge to becoming a professional driver in this industry is you got to have the experience. They're not going to just bring you on and say, oh, okay, you like cars, or you fucking turn a fast lap on Forza. You know, like that doesn't matter.
Right.
So you have to have experience. So to me, the next question becomes, how do you get experience? So, you know, your way was pretty unique. It was like, well, I got to just drive. I got to find a way to get paid to drive, right? So, you know, driving box trucks based on Craigslist ads. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before.
Man. It's funny because when you look at my driver for hire ad and what I got off that, the most random things, like guys who needed they needed the what's the DUI thing, the interlock device.
Oh yeah,
they would get installed in their vehicle, but they still didn't have.
And they'd pay you to come,
and they would pay me to come drive their car to the interlock place because they still didn't have their license active yet. Yeah. So I would have to drive their car, you know, and I'd meet these guys they're nice guys, you know, they like to drink. You know, they got themselves in trouble with that, but they want to make their car. And it's funny because each one of these guys was in a good career and had a lot of money, and so they were willing to pay a guy to randomly show up, drive their car, and we're driving, and the thing would be going off, and he'd have to, you know, like I'm not gonna blow in your stupid interlock device.
Yeah.
Like you got to blow in your interlock device, so he couldn't be drunk. You know, like that was one of my stipulations, and you kind of have to think on with that kind of stuff, Craigslist stuff. You got to think on your feet, right? Okay, you have to become good enough with dealing with people that you could know what's something good to go after and what's something not, how to talk to them, what questions to ask and stuff like that. But
use your head.
Yeah, I would tell them like, you pay me half when I show up and half when I'm done. That was my driving rule. Was if I'm going to drive something for you, you're going to pay me half when I get there for showing up, and then the other half later when I actually do the work. And sometimes I would base it off hourly rates. Sometimes I would base it off mileage. It would depend on the job. And everybody's going to have their own kind of different way to go about doing it. But that was my way to know, like, if I'm wasting my time or not. You know, if I'm going to drive a guy's box truck to Las Vegas, like.
So, I guess my question for you then is, how did you transition from driving box trucks and interlock vehicles, DUI people? How did you transition from that into like instruction, or you know what? Like, where did you go from there?
I think because it happened all at once. So in doing this, I had a technical background. I was a jet engine mechanic in the Marine Corps, so I was professionally trained to work on a vehicle, or I mean, a part of a vehicle, which in a jet engine is a pretty big part of it. But I was always into cars and trucks and bikes, so I had that resume to kind of go on. I was always doing my own stuff that I wasn't getting paid for. So there was a certain bit of volunteer of me where I'm going to go shoot what I would call rental car rallies, right? And that was my videos that I would do car reviews, that I would get the car, a rental car, that's why it was called rental car rallies, and I would do a review because I felt like, okay, what's my take on this vehicle? And I'm going to go pick vehicles I like, and I'm going to go review them. And I'm going to record that. I'm not a filmmaker, but I would record that because I like to see myself drive. So I'm going to record myself drive, record myself talking about the car, make some sort of stupid video, throw it up on the internet. Okay, so I was doing that. So you're building a resume or experience through that. That is experience, whether you're getting, because the thing about experience is, people don't understand, is they don't know whether you got paid for it or not.
Yeah.
When you look at
That's a good
experience,
point.
nobody knows whether you got paid for it or not.
Yeah.
So when I would look at my resume, I'd say, well, they don't know whether it was professional or amateur. So I would go, okay, what can I do that is, I'm not getting paid for, but it's still experience, right? That's it. When you put it on YouTube, I would call that my video resume. So when you go back and look at my videos on YouTube, you could see that, oh, he's been, okay, wait, go back to the date. Oh, okay, he's been doing this 2013. And it's 2017. So he's been doing it. Then also, because I found work in the automotive marketing industry, they can then see how I also talk. So they know, like, okay, he's not, if people who are watching it know what they're looking at, they can kind of see that, okay, he can get technical. So the first job I ever got in automotive marketing with Jeep and doing an event was on a product specialist basis, for the fact that they felt that I could technically talk about a vehicle. And you don't normally start at a product specialist level, you start at a promo level and then you work your way up to that. But because they could see my technical ability in talking about a vehicle, they were like, well, we could start them out a little bit higher. And that's how I got started. Now that gave me the opportunity to see jobs that I maybe would like more. And that's what led me to work at the Jalopnik Film Festival, doing the MX-5 stuff with the pre-production cars before they were launched.
Yeah. With the ND, right?
With JB, yeah.
Okay.
And that's how I met JB for the first time.
Oh, camera's dead. All right, hold on. So you were talking about, and that's how you met JB.
JB was Jalopnik Film Festival, Mazda MX-5 ND pre-production launch, where we let them drive manuals. We had like 2 automatics and nobody wanted to use them.
Yeah.
It's Jalopnik Film
an
Festival.
MX-5,
Yeah, Adam
yeah.
Carolla did a whole thing. They like put the top up and did like where people would get in and he'd be sitting in there and they'd be like, "Do I know you from somewhere?" You know, because then a lot of people don't recognize him really.
Yeah.
And then he would start talking. They'd be like, "Wait," you know, like all confused. And so that was that whole thing. And I did that with I helped lay down the course the cone course with it because they asked for a volunteer. So if you want to get in to be a professional driver and you don't have parents that are in it, uncles, all this, and those kind of, I would say, direct connections, you've got to volunteer, you've got to put yourself in the position, you've got to do everything you can in relation to that thing you want. Like, you're not necessarily always going to be the professional driver starting off, but you've got to put yourself in the position so that when the guy gets sick, when the guy drops out, when the guy isn't there, he doesn't show up, he got drunk the night before and is too hungover to drive, you're there to drive. Like, you have to put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
In whatever situation. I mean, who knows what kind of situation.
I've had situations. I usually carry, if I can, I try to carry my helmet and set fire suit and everything with me. Because I've had situations where guys just, like, for some reason just couldn't show up. They couldn't make it. Their flight got delayed one time, and they're like, "We need somebody else who can drive." I'm like, "I drive."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, do you have a fire suit?" I got it all right here.
Be the guy there to, and this is what I learned in the Marine Corps when they asked for a Humvee driver. Be the guy there to raise your hand. Like, be that guy who's the only guy who raises his hand. Like, be the guy. Because you know what? The thing is sometimes people will overlook your experience and skill based on the fact that he was there when we needed him.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes, people are willing to get you the experience. Like, he was there when we needed him.
But that's the door that opens everything, right? Because I think all of us had that shot where it was like somebody or some opportunity happened and you were there and you capitalized on it, and then you were able to put that on a resume and go, hey, I've done this. So then you could, parlay that into other work, and a lot of times, that one gig ends up like, oh, you did a good job, you worked your ass off, he was here on time every morning. Be a good employee. That's huge. But yeah, it's massive. Like, everybody has that breaking moment.
I mean, before the Iron Shekel, I really wanted to do the Iron Shekel super bad when JB let me know about it. And I remember emailing him, and he was like, okay, we'll do that. Oh, you can do that. But I've got this thing coming up called Roadkill. And which it has nothing to do with cars other than we're going to provide production, but pretty much everybody else is working with cars. And he let me know that because he knew that, like, I was all into cars.
Yeah.
He's like, I need a team lead to show up and run this part of it. And I did it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And that's when the porta potties showed up the day late. And I stayed up till 5. But that was equity.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, you stayed up till 5:30 in the morning, the one morning, and then 2:30 the next morning. And that was equity to him. That was like, I could get I could get that Iron Shekel job at that point much easier.
Yeah, because you were going to be there.
Reliability. Oh, we need you to show up in Whistler on a late notice. Like, he knew I was going to do it.
Yeah.
He would. There was no hesitation.
Yeah.
But I had to do that.
You can't buy.
You can't buy that.
Yeah.
There's no certification for that.
Yeah.
You just do it and be there to raise your hand. Yeah. Always be there to raise your hand.
All right, so cool. To wrap it up, there's definitely ways that you can get into it that have nothing to do with going to driving school.
Yeah.
But what would you recommend 3 best tips for somebody with no background, no connections, 3 best tips for someone trying to get into the driving industry?
Go to driving schools.
Okay.
Like, use your money, invest in yourself, go to driving schools. Drive other people's stuff to learn on.
Yeah, don't spend money on your own car.
And I get it. Okay?
Oh, I do too.
It seems great. I'm gonna buy this car, and I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna spend all this money. I'm gonna invest all this time. I'm gonna go out there, and I'm just gonna learn how to drive on it. That seems like a great plan, but it's not, because you don't know how to set the car up. You don't know the best tires yet. You don't know all this shit.
Yeah.
You don't even know specifically what it is you really want to do. Go to driving schools. Go to every driving school you can. You're gonna learn at least 1 or 2 things from every driving school that you're gonna take on with you. I still say the same stuff. I repeat the stuff I've learned in my first driving school to people. I just did it today with one of my customers.
Yeah.
Entry, apex, exit. Say it to yourself on every corner. Next thing you know, your brain's going to start to think entry, apex, exit. Like, it will just start to think that way. And that's the first driving school, well, pretty much the first one I went to. That was actually like, I'm going to invest this money and go to this thing. That was what the guy taught us.
Okay.
And go to driving schools. I mean, I honestly, like, I don't see a better way. If you don't have the funds, I mean, if you have the money, there's a lot of different avenues you can take.
Totally.
But obviously, if you're not born into it and you don't have that kind of funds, you didn't have this company and sell a company, make all this money, Go to driving schools.
Yeah.
Just go to driving schools.
Yeah, agreed. So,
Learn. You got instructors there.
driving schools. What else? Any other suggestions? Looking for 3.
Volunteer. Raise
Okay.
your hand for everything that has to do with driving. Box trucks. Drive everything. Just drive everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Drive it. If it's got wheels and you're willing to drive. I mean, obviously, if you're not comfortable on a motorcycle, don't do it. But 4-wheel vehicle. I mean,
I would
drive
say that's excellent advice. I would also say never accept something that you're not confident that you can do. It's one thing to be a little nervous or a little uncomfortable
Yeah.
and figure it out as you go, but never say that you can do something that you cannot 100% for sure do. I don't know of a faster way to lose
it's true.
this industry.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
a weird double-edged sword, though, because
Yeah.
there are certain times you can put yourself in a position where you might not be.
But be honest.
Yes.
Because oftentimes if someone comes to you and
Also
says,
be-
like,
and
are
you-
you comfortable with this? Can you do this? And you say, I'm pretty sure I can do it, but there's...
And
you know.
here's the thing: if you are going to put yourself in the position to where you know, like, okay, I don't know if I can do this, be willing to accept the repercussions if you don't pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be willing to, know, like, okay, this is my opportunity. I got this opportunity. I'm not going to get this again. I might not get it again. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if I can do it or not. But if I fail and fall flat on my face, that's what I have to accept. And
Yeah.
you just roll the dice and do it.
Yeah. I can totally respect that. I will also say there's times I've heard stories of people that have done that and it's gone the wrong way.
Sure.
So just be realistic, be prepared. So okay, so go to driving schools, volunteer.
My third one, learn the mechanics. Learn the
Ooh,
mechanics.
all right.
Learn the
Yeah,
mechanics.
I can get behind that.
Know the ins and outs. Because you know what? If you can talk to an engineer, if you can talk to anybody about technical stuff, this helped me with John Marshall. If you can talk about technical stuff, people will accept the fact that you know how to drive if you can talk technical stuff with them. Especially if you are not that skilled, if you didn't grow up doing the karting and all that. If you can talk technical stuff with them and how the car reacts, how it all works, they will much easier be willing to listen to you if they know you have at least know how mechanics work.
Yeah.
They will. They'll just listen to you because
Totally true.
they know that, okay, he's somewhat credible. He knows how these technical things work. He knows what happens if we increase the size of the sway bar. Know that stuff. Read the books. Like, there's millions of books written. Ross Bentley has written books. The guy who was pretty much the co-driver for Sterling Moss. It's called The Racing Driver. I read that in high school in my English class. That's a good book.
Yeah.
Like, that turned me on to knowing that people look at this in a very serious way in driving.
Yeah.
And if you know those technical terms, know what understeer is, know oversteer, know how to correct for them, all that stuff, people will listen to you. Because they know that you're putting effort into it.
Yeah.
And that's...
And to actually know, I think to actually know what you're talking about when it comes to automotive anything, it takes a lot of time and effort. So I think part of it is just that it validates the fact that you've been part of this for a long time.
Yeah, study it. If you want to be a master of your craft, you will study every single bit of it. And this is something that the Marine Corps taught me. Know current events. Look at racing. Know who the current racing drivers are. You want their job, you better know who they are. And you better know what their skill sets are, where they race, why they race, how they race, what their style is, how they stack up against the rest of the
what
field.
they do well, what they don't.
Well. Look at Formula One. I mean, you look at Lewis Hamilton, great qualifier, whatever. Look at Max Verstappen, great in the wet. I mean, awesome in the wet. Look at Brazil, 2016?
Oh, crushed it.
Oh my God! Like,
nuts.
destroyed the rest of the field because the wet is what the equalizer to all of that driving, especially in Formula One. So, I mean, we looked at it with Ayrton Senna, 84 in Monaco Grand Prix. It's just the equalizer of that field. Know your shit when it comes to that. Know your history. Like, that's important.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So to recap, your 3 tips are.
What was my first? I know them, but not in order.
So your 3 recommendations are.
Driving schools, racing schools, driving/racing schools. Go learn from other people who are instructors, who are making a living doing this stuff. That's your easiest way to get their knowledge. Number 2, volunteer / do everything that has to do anything with driving, whether professional or amateur, because experience does not define whether professional or amateur. And number 3, know the mechanics, know the technical stuff, know the current events.
Cool.
That's what I got.
Well, there you have it. Jeff White, everybody. Jeff, where can everybody find you?
At JAW Industries. And that's at Instagram, JAW Industries, YouTube, JAW Industries, and JAWindustries.com.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Always good to see you. And, I guess I'll see you in the morning anyway.
Yeah,
so,
we're
going to be here. We're on the Kia Stinger tour right now.
Yeah,
whatever. But,
exactly.
it's always fun, man. So, thank you for
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cheers.
Next time.
Bye. Hope you guys are beard up and enjoying your day.
I know I am.
Unless it's like 10 in the morning, maybe. Jeff's been drinking.
Jeff's been drinking.
Jeff's been drinking. Yeah.
Jeff's
I love how I just immediately threw you under the bus.
That's all right. That's all right. So
Today on Personal Branding and Motorsport, what